All right, we have quite a bit to cover today. We're going to talk about the South African economy, what's going on with the RAND. We are also going to be covering what is going on with the GNU, the Government of National Unity. We're also going to be looking at what is going on in the province of Gauteng, which is the economic hub of South Africa. Are we moving forward as a country? Are we moving backwards? What is Helen Zille saying? And also a very interesting story of a doctor who seems to have gotten himself in trouble with SARS, over 17 million. We're going to talk more about that. But the first story, which is really making the headlines, is the RAND dropping. Now, in a country like South Africa, where majority of the people are poor, over 50% of this country lives in poverty. Majority of young people are unemployed in this country. There are so many people living in shacks and RDP homes in this country. And it seems that the markets are focused on what happens in South Africa. And here you have it. It's RAND slips amid cautious wait for cabinet appointments. Now, according to the markets, they want to base their investments and their wealth on what happens in South African political situation. And this is the reason why you find that they interfere. This is the reason why you find that the Stellenbosch mafia interferes in South African economy. You find that billionaires interfere in our politics, because politics essentially creates an environment that allows business to function. And if politics is not running properly, business cannot function. And particularly in South Africa, where we have so many minerals, we're a mineral-rich country. We have literally minerals that countries depend on and that have created billion-dollar industries all around the world. So there is a very big focus and a big outlook there. Now, caution dominated the mood across emerging markets on Monday ahead of the local central bank policy decision lined up through the week, while investors awaited cabinet appointments in South Africa and assessed the impact of latest sanctions on Russia. In Africa, the RAND slipped 0.7% after trading flat for nearly 3 straight sessions, while yield on the country's benchmark 2030 government bond climbed over 11 basis points to 9.8 as traders awaited the newly formed Government of National Unity. The RAND was trading at 18.14 just before Monday noon. Now, whenever regime change wants to happen, billionaires, banks, they always scare the people by saying, if you appoint this person or that person, the RAND will drop. If you appoint this person as minister, the RAND will drop and your country will suffer. And I have an issue with this, because essentially speaking, we then need to ask ourselves the question of who's really running South Africa? And especially because we are a mineral-rich country, with many countries have got an interest in our country, billionaires have got an interest in our country. Who is really running South Africa? Because whenever something happens in government in South Africa, we never really hear reports about policy change or the ideas that their politician wants to bring in. It's always about the RAND. It's always about the economy. But if it was about the economy and about the RAND, then majority of the people should have had money. Because, here's the thing, and let me break it down. Where many leaders missed it, and Cyril Ramaphosa also missed it here, and especially many of the people that are part of Stellenbosch Mafia, where they missed it is, if you want to create wealth or make wealth for yourself, take care of the poor and middle class. Make the poor and middle class to have enough money to be able to spend so the economy can grow and the country can continue to flourish. Not put puppets into government and scare the whole country by saying, if you do this, if you do that, the RAND will drop, the RAND will do this. I mean, just by the DA being involved in this Government of National Unity, we saw the RAND go to 17 Rand just because of a white-led political party, which is in a minority in the country. We see the RAND being dictated. So is the RAND racist? Does the RAND respond to black and white? Why is the RAND seeing color? And these are questions that we must begin to question and begin to ask these things moving forward. Because at the backdrop of this, we have the Reserve Bank. And there are questions around what should happen to the Reserve Bank. Now, if you don't know this in South Africa, the Reserve Bank is owned by private individuals. It is a privately owned company. Yes, government does have oversight, but it is owned by private individuals in South Africa. And there seems to be this mechanism of, but we will shake the RAND or we will control the RAND if you do this, that, and the other. And that means that every decision that will ever be taken in South Africa will be based on these people that control the RAND. Now, it says the RAND advanced last week, breaking below 18 14 Rand on Wednesday. When Cyril Ramaphosa was inaugurated as president, it ended at 17.95 on Friday, near its strongest level in almost a year. So when President Cyril Ramaphosa came in, or was inaugurated, the Rand strengthened. Paul McNamara, investment director at GAM Investments, said that the valuation is cheaper than peers. South Africa's assets have potential to outperform from here. However, any new government will have very limited political capital for orthodox policies. The plan and personnel are likely to be given a pass, and concerns about realistically implemented. Now, local currency and Equity England have recovered from losses in early June following national results, where the ANC lost parliamentary majority that is held for decades. Elsewhere, the European Union agreed to a new package of sanctions against Russia. Now, I want us to assess this because I find that in politics, there are two types of people. One, there's the person who says, we don't care about the economy. They're very extreme to say, we don't care about the economy, let the Rand crash. And I want to know from you, if you're one of those people, let me know in the comment section to say, I'm that person who's saying we don't care about the Rand, let the Rand crash. Then there's another type of people that's saying we care about the Rand because the economies of scale that work around, they own property or they own investments, etc. And they care. Now, I want to break this down to you. The people that care about the Rand in this country are the minority. Why? Because they have assets in Rand, they have money in Rands, and they are making money from the Rand. Majority of the people in this country live in poverty. They don't care about the Rand the way that those that have wealth care about the Rand. There seems to be a very big disconnect. And the message that I would want to put out there, especially to the wealthy in South Africa, is to say, it doesn't make sense what you're doing. You can't continue to be afraid of what's going on with the Rand when you're keeping majority of the people in the country poor. If majority of the people in the country are poor, of course, they won't care about your bonds and your stocks and your Rands because they have nothing to protect. But if they've got something, if they're able to have jobs, if they're able to earn, then they will care. You know, what Lee Kuan Yew did, and I really didn't want to lecture tonight, but it's going there. What Lee Kuan Yew did, this was a leader in Singapore who came in when Singapore was really a divided country. They had nothing. They were the part of the poorest countries. And he came through, Lee Kuan Yew. And what he did, he said there were lots of strikes in the time that he came through. The working class were burning buses, they were burning buildings, they were very upset. And what Lee Kuan Yew came, he said that let the pension funds in Singapore, let them invest in things that will make the lives of the working class better. He said, let them build better houses and give bonds to the working class at a cheaper rate. Let them build schools. And, he came up with a list to say, let the money that public people, the poor, are actually contributing, let that money be reinvested in things that will help them. Now, in South Africa, the money that is supposed to be helping the poor, where is it invested in? It's invested in things that help the rich. And I want to show you a classic example. And I asked somebody the other day to say, but this doesn't make sense. So there is a public investment corporation, PIC. And if you look, it says Attack Inc.'s 2.7 billion deal with PIC for investment in Waterfall City. Now look at Waterfall City. Look at these pictures. There is no public servant who is a teacher, a nurse, a policeman who can afford to stay in Waterfall City. Yet, the Public Investment Corporation in South Africa is investing in Waterfall City where entrepreneurs stay and where millionaires stay. So, the strategies that these people have used have been incorrect from the beginning. They have not thought about, when you enter government, your first priority should be, how do I make my poor people in the country become economic participants? They must find jobs. They must be able to pay tax. They must be able to help contribute to growing the economy. Now, in South Africa, many of these politicians that have come have failed at that. And that's why whenever, News 24, all these publications, whenever they say, MK is being sworn in, and by the way, MK members are being sworn in tomorrow, automatically the articles are now saying the Rand is dropping. Why? Because MK members are being sworn in? Why is the Rand all of a sudden dropping? And these nuances will continue until people get it. And I've always felt that African leaders don't understand this thing. The way you build a nation is you make everybody rich. That's the way you do it. You open up opportunities so everybody is able to participate in the economy. That's how the economy grows. Well, you might be asking yourself, Mpho, how does that make sense? Let me explain it to you. Lee Kuan Yew created jobs. He invested in industries that were able to create jobs. He invested in education properly. And alternatively, what happens is when a new person starts working, they pay VAT, they pay PAYE, they're now paying taxes. The government has more money to spend. They're able to reinvest. When a new person starts working, there's a new factory being built. We're able to produce more. You get the picture. When people are given opportunities, that's how you grow an economy. And I think it makes me very angry when I look at the way that African leaders think and the way that they execute, is that they don't think properly. They want to grow the economy by pleasing billionaires. You're not going to grow the economy by pleasing billionaires. Now, what's going on with the GNU? Because a lot of people are asking, Government of National Unity, and you will notice that I am speeding today. We've got a National Executive Committee meeting of Arise South Africa tonight. So I am running out of time. So I'm going to try and get as much as we possibly can. And if I am going too fast for you, please, you are able to slow down on your YouTube. In the settings button, you are able to slow down my speed so that I do speak a little bit slower for you if I am going too fast for you. That is possible. Now, let's move on. In the GNU that they talk about, remember, we came to discuss to say that the GNU is non-existent. It's a scam word. It's not a real thing. They're using it just to fool people. And guess what? Today we wake up to Cyril Ramaphosa talking about the GNU. And this is a tweet by Cyril Ramaphosa on his Twitter page. And it says here that the country's hopes are pinned on the success of the GNU. Our stated commitment to work together constructively and for South Africa's benefit has generated a great deal of goodwill that we should not squander. I wonder what that goodwill is. Is this goodwill the RAND that majority of South Africans can't even participate in? And this is the presidential newsletter. For those of you that don't know, President Cyril Ramaphosa does have a newsletter that he releases every week. But however, I've often found that it just wumbles and, he speaks about the fact that this government is a GNU and that's the end of the presidential newsletter. But the truth of the matter is there are cracks on the wall. People don't understand what he's talking about. They don't agree. They don't know. And one such a person is Tito Mboweni. Tito Mboweni was invited to an interview, and this is what he had to say about the GNU.
The National Party left the government, but fortunately the IFP stayed on. So you had the government basically of the ANC and the Inkatha Freedom Party. Context is different now. Right. What we have now is not a transitional government. It's an attempt at trying to form a government because the elections were not decisive. No party was big enough to form a government on its own. And therefore, this is actually not a government of national unity at all. This is a coalition government of the parties which have not been able to get more than 50% of the vote. And I would like to insist on this. Conceptually, this is not a government of national unity we're talking about. We're talking about a coalition of parties to form a government. And I think that's very important.
Is a GNU.
Now, you have President Cyril Ramaphosa continuing to say to the country in his newsletter that this is the government of national unity, yet you have Tito Mboweni, who is a member and of the ANC and part of their leadership, and he comes out and he says, no, it's not. So you can see that the way they do things in the ANC at the current moment, there is no coordinated way of thinking. There is no political teaching or political willpower. There is no understanding. It's as though they walk on in darkness. And some call it a GNU, then the next morning somebody says it's not a GNU. And people are starting to be concerned to say, what is going on in South Africa? We all went out to vote and we were hoping that things would change. Now we're sitting and, we are seeing this and that and a whole lot of stuff is happening. Yet, we're not seeing the country progress forward. Now, you must remember the most dangerous part of this all is that the more this happens, the more the poor and disenfranchised suffer. Because what begins to happen is people stop investing in the country. People feel that it's uncertain. People don't understand what's going on. Our RAND begins to plummet and these things sort of happen. And here's something I want to say to you. If you're a viewer and you've got some money in South Africa or you've got some investments and you're part of the privileged, my advice to you is get some of your funds in other stable currencies that you know are going to be stable. Because I think what we're going to be seeing over the next couple of days is we're going to see the RAND really move in very rapid rates. And I used to have a show called The Best Finance Show where I talked about stock markets and economies and cryptocurrencies and blockchain and all sorts of things. And a lot of people want me to bring it back. And I might consider bringing it back where we educate educate each other on finances, because that's also very important. So if you want to see that show, comment in the comment section. Bring back the best finance show. Bring back, and if I've got 100 comments saying I must bring back the best finance show, I will bring it back. Now, what is going on with the government of national unity? This is what is going on. We have received or seen letters that are floating around on Twitter explaining what is going on, or trying to explain what is going on. Look, I don't know what to say about the government of national unity, because I think right now we are just seeing a whole lot of different things that are going on. So I'm not sure what is going on with the government of national unity. And I want to just talk a little bit about the government of national unity. So the DA has released a letter. And what the DA is saying is they are basically saying that they want these political seats in government. And this is, they're basically saying in each of these departments or each of these clusters, they want a seat in the economic cluster, in the social protection cluster, in the governance cluster, in the justice cluster, the international corporations cluster. They're basically saying that they want a seat here. And this is a letter that has been leaked. And I just want to read a part of it. It says, we would seek to have a deputy minister in the same ministries as we have ministers, with the exception of the finance ministry, where we would only be appointed to the post of deputy minister, as set out earlier. It is obviously, so as you can see, this letter is telling us that the ANC has agreed that the next finance minister is going to be a DA person. And already in KZN, we've already seen that it's a DA person who is in KwaZulu-Natal. So these are some of the things that are coming out. It is obviously impossible to effect positive change if the processes of government and key personnel in government obstruct the democratic alliance at every turn. I mean, this doesn't make sense. A 20% party, okay. The director generals in departments reporting to the Democratic Alliance ministers are selected by panels consisting of Democratic Alliance ministers and are submitted to the president for his approval, and such approval cannot reasonably be withheld. The contracts of all current DGs would also need to be reconsidered in light of our concern that incumbents may not be amendable to direction for Democratic Alliance ministers, especially given the ANC's cadre deployment policy. So the DA is basically saying we're going to fire everybody that's already in government departments and we want to put our own. That all tenders in departments routing to Democratic Alliance ministers issued since the promulgation of the election date be reviewed. It is obviously not possible to effect change in the context where recent decisions by the previous government are rendered irreversible. So all tenders in departments reporting to the Democratic Alliance ministers issued since the promulgation of the election date be reviewed. So they're basically saying that they're going to review all the tenders there, and that a technical clearing house is established consisting of representatives from each political party with a mandate to resolve differences over policy and other decisions of government by consensus. Therefore, they become a source of conflict in cabinet. In the event consensus is impossible, sufficient consensus would be required as contemplated in clause 19.3 of the statement of intent. In the event that differences prove particularly intraceable, they would need to be resolved by the president and the leader of the Democratic Alliance. This approach would give effect to clause 19 of the statement. So that's a lot of stuff that they're saying then. I want to break it down, but because of time, we might not be able to. Finally, please be advised the Democratic Alliance participant in government in KwaZulu-Natal depends on the participation in government and national. So this is a threat. So this is the DA basically saying that if you don't do this, we will pull you out of KwaZulu-Natal. Remember, the ANC is in KwaZulu-Natal with a very, very small minority. We would like to reiterate once again that we fully remain committed to participating in the government in which we would be able to effect change for the people of South Africa. Our country faces a unique opportunity now to implement programs that would boost job creation, alleviate poverty, and that's where the statement is. I mean, a lot is happening. A lot is happening. The DA is making demands, very strong demands from a political party that did not win an election. And we await to see what's going to happen. We await to see what is happening. And on Twitter, there's people that are trolling. Somebody just created this troll and they're saying that this is the current situation in the GNU. And they put Helen Zilla's face, and we all know that meme that is well known there. But we are in uncertain times in South Africa. And because we're in uncertain times, it calls for things to be done a little bit differently from what each and every one of us have been used to. And I think this is something we all need to realize, that GNU, or the coalition, which is a more honest term, is something that we've never had before. So these things are new, and it demands that we keep learning. It demands that we hold leaders accountable, and it also demands that we are careful, especially those that have built wealth and are in South Africa. Be careful with the wealth that you've built, because we are in a state right now where we do need to be careful. There are certain things in this country that if they did go wrong, a lot of people do end up losing. Now, in Gauteng, we're seeing something happening here. We're seeing, it says, Panyaza Lesufi to announce cabinet, and he was supposed to do so yesterday. He did not. But now we're hearing news that he's going to announce it. And the Mail and Guardian has released an article which I thought was quite concerning. They are saying that after Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi failed to announce his cabinet at least 3 times last week. I mean, this is concerning. If in the Gauteng province, the hub of the economy in South Africa, the leader is unable to announce a cabinet 3 times, it means that there are big issues. And this is very, very concerning. And remember, the reason why I say it's concerning is because you can't run government if you're not in agreement, if the coalition is not going to work. And business is afraid of doing business in uncertain areas. So there is a lot at risk here, and it's important that they get it right so that things can happen properly. It's the same way as, if you're a business person or you're an investor and you want to open up a factory based on the fact that the government is going to be focusing on perhaps building a road in a certain place, and you want to build a mine or you want to do something there. You're uncertain because if that government changes and they say they're no longer building a road, and you've already now invested 3 billion in that project, you're now stuck. So business gets concerned when these things happen. And for us, really, we are also very concerned as citizens. And some of the things that are happening, I mean, if you look here, it says Lesufi was forced to postpone cabinet announcements last week, Tuesday and Friday, because of a lack of consensus with ANC coalition partners. And on Sunday, a notice that he would name his cabinet was withdrawn within less than an hour. Sources with intimate knowledge of the negotiations said Lesufi's attempts to make the announcement were all premature, as there was no deal in place with the other parties and the ANC needed to govern Gauteng. Now, the DA accused the ANC of not consulting with it before coming out in public to say Lesufi would unveil his cabinet on Sunday. At the weekend, the DA threatened to pull out of the coalition agreement with the ANC over a deadlock on MEC positions, with the ANC refusing to accede to some of its demands. Now, again, we're seeing a lot of commotion happening. And the question we all need to be asking ourselves is, what does the future look like for our country? And I think this is where I sort of, hope that we would be able to move through this and ensure that we vote much wiser and much better. Because what should have happened is political parties that are aligned in policy and thinking should have come together. Now we've got political parties that are completely different, and really our political system is really becoming something very difficult to manage. Now in the US, they have 2 dominant political parties, Republican and Democrats. And really it's either you're thinking in black or you're thinking in white in terms of your options. You don't have 12 other options. And a lot of people are saying South Africa should change its electoral system to make sure that this happens. And I don't know, what are your thoughts? What do you think there? We are running out of time today, as you know, that I do have a meeting to attend to. So we are running out of time. But there is an interesting story that has come out today that I quickly want to point out, and I did promise you that we will look at it. A medical doctor has been found guilty of prejudicing SARS of 17 million by not submitting his tax return. Another Cape medical doctor has been found guilty of failing to declare his personal income tax to South African Revenue Services over a 7-year period. Oof. Fabian Royston, 55, was convicted in Kimberley's Commercial Crimes Court on Monday. According to the Directorate for Propriety Crimes Investigation, known as the Hawks, Dun was found guilty of contravention of Tax Administration Act of 28 of 2021. Warrant officer said the accused owned a medical practice called FR Dun Practice and failed to submit personal income tax returns from 2015 to 2022. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it is we always hear of black people from the media and their tax wars and their tax issues. And it's the first time that we're hearing of somebody else, of a different race. And I'm looking at the publication. The story is only running on IOL. It's not running on all the other publications. And again, I asked the question to say, we need our media to transform in the country. If you're going to be dragging black women for not paying tax, if you're going to be dragging black men for not paying tax, we need to make sure that you drag everybody equally, if that is what you're planning on doing. That do not allow bias and race to come into journalism in South Africa. And it's a call that I've been making to say that we must hold journalists accountable. And I said the other day that, I'd love to start a media publication house where we report news in a fair way that represents the majority of this country. And many of you did show interest in that. So we are looking into it to see what we can do. But in South Africa, we've got a lot happening. A lot of things are changing. A lot of things are very unsure and uncertain. And tomorrow I'm going to come through and hopefully we'll have a longer time because I won't have an NEC meeting. And really what I want to discuss is we're going to look at the MK swearing in. And we're also going to look at, and I think it's important to look at this, some of the things happening in the country, what the direction should be and what we should be fixing or focusing on. Because one thing we can do from where we are is we can influence policy. As a platform, we are able to do that. And that's one of the powerful things about media. So we want to make sure that we're not only just discussing stories, but we are influencing policy, we are influencing what's going on, and we are understanding all the things that are going on in our political system. So thank you so much for joining me. Make sure that you subscribe and make sure that you leave a comment in the comment section. Now, many of you are not subscribed to the channel, and it doesn't help us when you don't subscribe. So make sure that you subscribe, you leave a comment, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me today, and that is the end. Thank you and good night.